Hi, I'm Roxy, and today I'm going to review and show you how to use ArtPose Pro. It's some posing software that I'll tell you straight away I've developed a love-hate relationship with. I very nearly uninstalled it in frustration, but I pushed past the jank and I found a few remarkable features which I've not seen in other posing software, so I'll showcase those during the course of the video. So I have the desktop version of the software, which is available via the Steam gaming platform that I use on my PC. I'm guessing you can probably use it on a Mac as well, but be aware that it does require a 3-button mouse, which means left click, right click, and scroll wheel click. So if you've got one of those fancy minimalistic Apple mice with no buttons, then you're going to have to get yourself a regular old mouse. Otherwise, they do also have iPad version and an Android version. When it first came out, it was just the male edition, but then the developer Sean Ogle, unfortunate surname, he made the female edition as well, and then it came out as ArtPose Pro, which is both versions. And then the app was very sloppily ported over to Steam. That's the version we're going to look at today because I'm not a fan of mobile apps. I prefer working on a nice big screen with a mouse and keyboard as opposed to fiddling around on a small screen and leaving greasy finger marks. Okay, let's get started. Head on over to your Steam library. You might find it somewhere in here. Otherwise, head on over to the left-hand side to where you've got your whatever games you've got installed, if any. Click on ArtPose Pro and click launch. So when you first open up the software, you have a male model in T-pose and absolutely nothing resembling a menu. And it took me embarrassingly long to figure out that these things in each of the corners, they're actually a menu. I don't know if that's typical for mobile apps, but as a Windows user, I expect to have the menu up at the top in an orderly fashion. And if there are icons, I expect there to be tooltips so I know what it's doing. We don't have any of that. What we do have is this help thing, which really grates my tits, and I'll tell you why. When you use the scroll bar, you can see it flips the model around. And if you think you're going to get away with it by using the mouse scroller, that zooms the model in and out. So what we're going to do is we're going to close that, and we're never going to open it or even speak of it ever again. But fortunately, I have looked at every nook and cranny of this program, and I can tell you exactly how to use it and where to find everything at this point. So the first thing you need to know is that these 3 icons are different modes that you can work in. Top left is lighting mode, bottom left is camera mode, bottom right is posing mode, and top right is a way to take screenshots, but that's hidden when you're in posing mode. You can see that when you're in camera mode or lighting mode. And by default, we start on the camera mode. And in this view, if you left click and drag, it moves the camera around the model. If you right click and drag, it pans the scene. And if you zoom in and out using your scroll wheel, then we basically zooming the camera in on the model. I think you can also use this thing. These 5 numbers at the bottom here are for favoriting different camera views. I've already favorited a few. It's very easy. Like let's say you want to look at the model from this angle and you want to save it to slot 3. You just hold down 3 until those concentric circles turn green, and then you know that it's saved that view. So if I go to 4, I haven't saved anything there. If we go 3, we've got our view here. Unfortunately, this is global. It's not per model. So it would, of course, be nice if each model had its own 5 camera views, but I guess it's better than nothing. Now here's where things get a little illogical. We're in what the dev calls camera mode, but there's other stuff that you can do in here that has absolutely nothing to do with the camera and everything to do with the model itself. But anyway, first we have this slider here, which allows us to adjust the muscle tone. At this point, seeing as we're fiddling around with body types, there must be a toggle somewhere to change the female model. That's what you'd think, and you'd be wrong. The toggle is somewhere else, not in this section, but I'll show you that in a minute. Let's just finish off this section. The last thing over here is this little thing that makes me want to eat boiled sweets. After clicking on it, I realize it's not a sweetie. I guess it's supposed to be a muscle fiber because it gives us an Ecorche view of the model. And clicking again gives us a black and white Ecorche. And clicking again takes us back to the, I guess let's call it a skin-on version. Okay, let's head over to pose mode. If you click pose mode, bottom right corner, here is our toggle for the male and female model. And while you're in this mode, you can also control the camera, just not with left click. With right click, you can move around the model, and you can also zoom in and out with your scroll wheel. We also have this plus sign here, which adds a second model to the scene. This can be useful if you need to pose a couple. For example, this is a painting I did a couple of years ago, and for the poses I used a software called Design Doll, but that didn't have a dual posing feature, so I had to pose them separately like this, and it would have obviously been much easier if I could pose them together like we can here. So you switch between the models by clicking on the cone on their head, and if you want to get rid of that second model, you just click the minus sign. I can actually show you a dual pose that I've been working on, but I suppose this is a good opportunity also to show you how to save and recall poses. So while you're in the posing mode, you'll see these icons on the side. The downward pointing arrow is to save a pose or export it externally as a TXT, and the upward pointing arrow is to recall a pose. You'll see these numbers correspond to these numbers. So I quick saved to slots 1 and 2. If I quick save to slot 3, let's just call this T pose. So we've got our T pose saved to slot 3. And for example, if I click on high noon, this is a pose that I worked on previously, and I'll actually show you the footage of creating this pose later on in the video. And then this one is something that I'm still working on, but I wanted to show you because it's a dual pose. This is supposed to be, she's going to be a robot lying on a table and he's going to be soldering something. So it's obviously really useful to be able to pose them together. I can do this kind of over the shoulder shot and everything is as it should be. But back to this stuff. So if you wanted to export this, you'd click on export, and by default it wants you to save it into the Steam. I'll show you exactly where it is because it doesn't tell you obviously where this is. So here we go. It puts it into local disk C if Steam is installed on your C drive, program files, Steam, Steam apps, common, ArtPose Pro. So that is the default save location, and I would suggest basically using this location because I had problems saving it anywhere else. I chose different locations to save it to, including loose on the C drive, and it would pretend to save the TXT file, but it wouldn't actually save anything. There's also no other way to choose a different drive letter. Like I typically don't save data on my C drive. So that's a little bit annoying, and I wish that the developer would put a little bit of work into this, but not holding my breath. But anyway, so we get around it by we basically just got to use their default save location. I've saved 2 in here, and to import, when you import it goes to that same default location where you can recall your files. Back to the dual poses. Let me just go into camera mode so I can just pan this up. There we go, that was bugging me. If you accidentally remove your second model, you don't have to worry because when you click plus, it puts it back exactly how it was. It does remember the model information. We also have undo and redo, which is nice. I've used posing software where you can't undo, and well, it sucks to say the least, so very happy for this. If you mess up spectacularly, like you create some unholy abomination where it's going to take too many undos to fix and you'd rather just start fresh, you can also just hit the eraser at the top. and it puts it back in the default T pose. So this icon in the corner of the person standing is the pose menu. If you click on that, we've got 4 pages of poses. So that can save you some time. You know, you just kind of click on something that resembles similar to what you want to make, and then you can start from that instead of the default T pose. I'm just going to grab a sitting pose now, because I also want to show you that there is a props menu. This is this icon here with the primitives on. Most of the props are kind of useless, but let's just bring in a chair, because this is one of the props that actually makes sense. Now we close the prop menu, and we can either move our model to the prop or move the prop to the model. We can see that he is a little small, so this is a good opportunity to show you this little size slider. I call it the David and Goliath slider because it's not a child adult slider. This is literally small human, big human. You know, children have a different looks like he's picking his nose. Children have a different body composition. For example, their heads are significantly bigger than adults. But yeah, so this is a useful prop. To get rid of a prop, you click on the prop and then you click the little bin icon. I'm also just going to reset the pose. Our lady here. Something else I can show you in the props menu is on page 2. This is actually useful. We've got a whole bunch of weapons and tools, one for each hand, so we can give her, let's say, a katana in the right hand and a briefcase in the left hand, because she's obviously going to work wielding a katana, as one does. And the really cool thing is you can see that it automatically changes the hand to a grip pose, so you don't have to go and arrange the hands afterwards. To get rid of these props as well, you have to leave the prop menu, click on the prop and click the bin icon. I kind of learned this the hard way because I was playing around and I gave her a boxing glove, and then I thought I could just click to toggle it off and nothing happened, and I click and I was like, oh, that glove's going supernova. And then I realized actually what it's doing is adding just tons of instances of the same prop in the same place. So that's obviously a bit of a bug. And to get rid of it, undo and redo doesn't work. That's only for the pose. To get rid of the props, you literally have to go in and delete each prop. Click delete, and so that's a bit tedious. But fortunately we saved a T pose here, so I'm just gonna go back to that pose so that we don't have to sit here all day deleting boxing gloves. Okay, so this damn button, this is the problem when you don't have tooltips. I'm clicking and not really seeing anything besides that little arm jiggle. Eventually I figured it out. It's mirroring the pose, but because she's in a T pose, you're not actually seeing what's going on. So let me just click on our high noon pose. Now if I click on the mirror, you can actually see that the pose is flipping from mirror to mirror. This one as well, this is, you know, if you're just in the T pose, you don't really see what's going on. Basically what it does is you select a joint that you like. Let's say, for example, we like the way that this leg is positioned, and then, whoa, that's really bad. That's a terrible example. Let's just click undo, choose the other leg instead. So let's say we like this one. Click symmetry. There we go, much more ladylike. So you can see basically all it does is it copies a leg or an arm position and makes it symmetrical. Okay, I'm going to go back to our T pose and show you how to manipulate the pose. Okay, so if we look at the posing controls itself, you'll notice that there's all these little circles, obviously representing different parts of the model's body, except this circle at the base of the model is different. This one allows you to position the model along the X, Y, and Z axes. And it also has a toggle here which puts it in rotate mode. It's only horizontal rotate. I'll show you in a minute how to vertically rotate. So this toggles the position, and this is the rotate. The other big circle, this is where you can vertically rotate, but it's kind of like a free form. It's not like the other rotate function, which was very rigid. This you can flip her around like a piece of tumbleweed. So something I need to bring to your attention is how wonky the dragging controls are. Most of the Steam reviews I saw that were negative were all complaining about the controls, and I'm not going to lie, I nearly rage quit myself in the beginning before I figured out what was going on. You know, you click a node, and let's say I want the leg to go that way, left click drag, and it goes that way, and it just feels like guesswork. But what is happening is that the dragging direction is not orientated according to your view, but rather according to the front view of the model. See, dragging right in this view actually makes sense. But in this view it doesn't, and of course in this view it doesn't. So at least now that I know what's happening, I feel less inclined to throw punch the dev. But yeah, so just keep that in mind, that when it feels like guesswork, try to look at the model from the front, and then it'll be a lot easier. So back to our circle by the crotch. So we were left clicking and dragging here. If we middle click and drag, then we can get it to do cartwheels. And that's a common theme that you'll see is left click and drag moves something, and middle click and drag tends to twist something. If we head on over to the circle by the solar plexus, this is the way we bend her core. And this is probably the most important node of all, because if you want a realistic looking pose, even if somebody's just standing straight, they're never really just standing straight. There's always some kind of a twist to their body, and that's what makes a pose look natural. So left click and drag, we can move it around, and middle click and drag, we can twist. And notice how nicely the model behaves. Look at how these muscles start to pinch and these ones start to elongate. Beautiful. You don't often see that kind of detail in posing software. In fact, I've never seen it. You'll see when we get to the biceps, it's even better. So if we move to the hip joints, again, we can left click and drag to move, or we can middle click to twist. And it's the same with the shoulders. Left click and drag moves, middle click and drag twists. I wish there was a way to move the hips a little bit asymmetrically. You know, if I could just raise one of them slightly or drop one of them slightly, it makes it easier to show weight distribution. You know, which leg the character is putting most of their weight on. Often with the human body, when the rib cage is tilted to the side, the pelvis on that same side tilts up slightly. But in this software, the pelvis is always symmetrical. It's not a huge deal. You can still make nice poses, but it would be better to have that. So if we go to the knee and the elbow joints, left click and drag, it moves it, but only this way. It's a very limited range of motion. See that? And the same with the elbow. I'm not sure why they limited the range of motion when, you know, you can grab something else and do that. I personally am a fan of limited motions so that you can get realistic poses, but I'd want that applied all over for consistency. I feel like they could always have a toggle for freaky deaky mode, you know, in case you need to paint someone possessed walking on the ceiling. But typically I think most people would want realism, and then it needs to be accurate. Now, one thing that I think is a little bit inaccurate is I showed you with the shoulder joint, if you middle click, you can twist, and you can't middle click and twist with the knees or the elbow. And you really should be able to twist this, because if you hold your arm out straight, yes, you can twist the whole thing and everything goes together, but you should also be able to twist just your forearm. Yeah, there's a little bit of motion when you're twisting your forearm, but the forearm typically twists much more. So that's a range of motion that they've capped there unnecessarily. But while we're here, let's just take a moment to appreciate these biceps. Look at that. In fact, let's get the dude. Look at this. Look at that muscle. Isn't that beautiful? So that was the arms, but if we move over here to the clavicle, if we left click, it moves the arm, but it actually moves it from the shoulder blade. Let me just T-pose. Okay. Select the dude again. So from the shoulder, if you move it, it doesn't really do it from the shoulder blade at the back. It like moves it from the delt. If you pick the clavicle and then move it, you can see more of the back. The shoulder blade moves with it. And it's also got a twist. If you middle click twisting here twists the arm, but if you do it with the clavicle, then it either hides the traps or kind of flexes out the traps. What do they call it? Trapezoid, trapezius, whatever. The ankles and wrists do have full range of motion, so we've got our left click and drag to move and our middle click to twist. So move, twist. On the feet, we can also move the toes and twist the toes. Okay, it works as one single toe plane, let's call it that. And for the hands, there's no individual finger control. Instead, we've got these two icons, which are hand pose randomizers. You just keep clicking on it, and the hand randomizer probably has the hand pose that you want, but if not, I'd recommend an app called Handy. I've looked at this in a previous video. It's really very, very good. I've got the iPad version, but there is an Android version as well. Failing that, you can always take a photo of your own hands. So almost done. Moving up to the head. Actually, the head and the neck are very similar. You can kind of do the same things. It's left click and drag, and middle click and twist. The difference is the neck has less range of motion. If you do it from the head, you can get some more extreme angles. No, yes, what, amen. But let's just tilt that head back and look at these beautiful neck muscles as well. Now, if we're using the head versus if we're using the neck, it's probably a bad example. They both kind of move the neck around, but this is just so beautiful. And you could also do freaky deaky mode. You can go like full exorcist. Okay, so those are all our posing controls. At the end of the video, I will show footage of me creating that high noon pose from start to finish and then painting it so you can see the process in action. But first we have one more mode, and this is the lighting mode. You can access it by clicking the icon on the top left. Again, there's stuff in the section that really should be elsewhere. Here we've got a couple of hair options, and we've got some facial hair as well. We've got our boiled sweetie again, so we can go into Ecorche mode. We've also got a silhouette mode. And then this next thing is so cool. It's got like a cell shading mode. So obviously if you're an animator or a comic book artist, this is almost like a cheat. But even for the rest of us, it's so good the way it separates the values, the lights, darks, and halftones. And you can also move the lights around by just left click dragging. Now this section is also pretty rad. You've got RGB sliders, and you can color the light. We're in light mode, but you can also color the dark. But I need to go back to the normal statue mode. We're in cell shading, so you don't see the shadow color in cell shading mode. Here we're in the skin on mode, and we're on the shadow mode, and see I'm coloring the shadow. If I go to the light, I can color the light. And this is contrast. And there's also like a reset, not a reset, an undo. Oh, I see. This it is a reset, but it resets for this mode only. This is the light mode. If we go into the shadow mode, click reset, and it resets everything back here. So that's almost everything apart from the screenshot. I haven't showed you this. This is the only way to get an image of your pose. There's no other export options. You can't even say what resolution or where you want it saved or anything. It's really a half-ass feature. You basically click on the camera and then you click the tick to say, yes, I want to take a screenshot. And then you have to magically know where it saved it to, and it doesn't tell you. Fortunately, I can tell you because I hunted around for it. And it saves it to your C drive, users directory, your username, pictures, and then there's a folder called ArtPose Screenshots, and this is where you'll find all of the screenshots that the application takes. I don't know where it saves it to on a Mac. I'm sorry. I can't test that. I don't have a Mac. So that's how you use the program, and as you've seen, there are some things that are a bit janky and could definitely benefit from a more logical user interface. It would be amazing if there was Steam workshop support so we could share poses, but I'm not holding my breath. If we go to the community hub of this particular software and go to the news, you can see the last time the dev added any news was in 2020. So I think that we're stuck with the software the way it is right now. It's a little bit of a learning curve to figure out where things are and how to change things, but once you get the hang of it, it's absolutely beautiful. So despite its jank, I would still recommend it. And now let me just show you how I created that high noon pose. I've got footage of the pose creation, but I'm also just going to show you where I got the idea for the pose. Somebody on my husband's Discord shared this meme that I thought was hilarious. I mean, that is such a great pose. But I wanted a female body and in a different angle. So this is why I thought to use ArtPose Pro. So you're seeing that footage now of me creating what I call the high noon pose. And then afterwards, I will show you the painting that I made out of it.
Jackpot, I hit the number, it was always you. I was looking for sevens, they were coming in twos. I was on a bad streak and honey, it was getting me down. Down to my last dime with no good news. I was getting pretty tired of singing the blues. My luck was running dry, I was about to leave this town. I'll give it one more try, I'll give it one last shot. Put the quarter in the slot, could it be jackpot? Viva Las Vegas, Atlantic City rendezvous. Weekend in Reno, late night casino. I'll go anywhere with you. Well, I should have seen it coming, you were always there. Standing in the corner with a warm dog stare. I had to move a little closer so I could get a better look. You said, come on, little darling, we should have our share. Let's try and roll the dice and run away somewhere. Didn't have to say another word, no, that was all it took. I say, let's go all in, I'll give it all I got. Put the quarter in the slot, there it is, jackpot. Viva Las Vegas, Atlantic City rendezvous. Weekend in Reno, late night casino. I'll go anywhere with I got a hole in my heart, mighty deep, cold and dark, like a tunnel. It's hard to breathe in this town. I'm sinking deep, going down through the funnel. I'll never stop. Hurry, here we go now, fast as we can. Glory's come to play, wants to make a stand. I got the shakes, got my head in my hands every day. A state of confusion. Don't you ever say I didn't tell you so. I was doing right when I let you know. I'm just a fool, I let all my cards show. Don't believe the illusion. Tom's in the bed, Jack's on the floor. Jim won't sleep inside no more. I'm seeing double, and I just can't take anymore. I got a bag of relief in the drawer, laying round in my gown. Take it out, burn it down. Hurry, here we go now, fast as we can. Glory's come to play, wants to make a stand. I got the shakes, got my head in my hands every day. A state of confusion. Don't you ever say I didn't tell you so. I was doing right when I let you know. I'm just a fool, I let all my cards show. Don't believe the illusion. Call me out, say what you will. Let's be sure that we both know the score. Have no doubt, every word you'll say. Well, I've heard it all before. Hurry, here we go now, fast as we can. Glory's come to play, wants to make a stand. I've got the shakes, got my head in my hands every day. A state of confusion. Don't you ever say I didn't tell you so. I was doing right when I let you know. I'm just a fool, I let all my cards show. Don't believe the illusion.
Thank you to my patrons. I really appreciate you. And thank you for watching. Much obliged if you leave a like and subscribe. Until the next one, God bless.